So thanks for joining us. So long walks and hiking, how is that different from where you grew up?
Well, very different than growing up in small town Abingdon, Virginia, in the sense that I'm living in Los Angeles, in a metropolis of 10 million people in a state of 40 million, which is essentially a nation state. But I'm blessed to have grown up in Virginia and now live in Los Angeles.
That's great. So speaking of growing up in Virginia, what was high school like for you in Abington?
You know, so often you hear horror stories about people who have just matriculated through high school. But for me, it was actually really quite pleasant. I'm still close friends with many of my Abingdon High School Falcon classmates. I was the student body president, captained the basketball and tennis teams, and was also an actor at the State Theater of Virginia, which is the Barter Theater there in Abingdon. But one doesn't really grow up in Abingdon, Virginia, expecting to become a film writer and director and producer, or even an actor. It just doesn't seem to be a vocation that I think anyone there expects from themselves or from their children. And in fact, I don't think my parents thought it was a very good idea, certainly my mother, until she saw me at the Oscars.
And the Oscar goes to?
At that point, it was always like, honey, when are you going to get a real job? When are you going to put your Hampden-Sydney education to use as an economic major who studied philosophy, Latin, and rhetoric? And but what I kept telling her was that time at Hampden-Sydney has informed who I am and why I'm a film writer and director. But no, you don't quite grow up in Virginia thinking that that's an opportunity. Now, I have two young girls who fully believe that they can become actresses and screenwriters and directors, because that's what Dad does. And in fact, both of them were in the last film that I had released a couple of years ago. So it's a different mindset out here. Hostiles was my fourth film. My girls have been on all of my sets. Have kind of grown up on a movie set, very close to my cinematographer, and Christian Bale, who's the star of that film, was like an uncle to them. So this was the first time they were on camera in the headlines, and I was nervous for a number of reasons, but they acquitted themselves beautifully. They were fantastic in the film, and I think they really highlighted to the viewer that searching for manifest destiny in the American West was often fraught with peril. My films often take the viewer to the darker recesses of the human psyche. And I put all of my therapy onto the screen so I don't actually have to go through it. But I see the world in a different way, and I think hopefully render it authentically and emotionally.
So let's talk about your decisions. You're in high school, you're a child actor, mom and dad are not so sure about this, Abington, Virginia, and then you're like, I'm going to Hampden-Sydney. So why go to Hampden-Sydney?
Well, most of my father and uncles all went to the University of Virginia. And my father, since I was young, wanted me to go to University of Virginia. And when you feel like you want a path or blaze your own trail and not do everything else that uncles and cousins and parents have done, which was part of my commencement speech at Hampden-Sydney, I think one has to do that. You know, you have the great thing about Hampden-Sydney is that it ensures that every student graduates with a superb liberal arts education tailored for young men. And you can tailor your major to what it is that interests you. And very often you don't know your first year. Very quickly, I learned that economics was something that interested me. And then, of course, I had Dr. Kenneth Townsend, who was one of my favorite professors. And every time I go back, I look him up. And then once I took his class, I knew that's the major for me. But I will say I also loved French with Dr. Farrell, and then I loved philosophy, and I loved English. And then, of course, we have the rhetoric program, which is the cornerstone of the academic experience at Hampden-Sydney. And I really am a firm believer in in a liberal arts education. Certainly if you do what I do, which is you write and direct films about the human experience.
So let's get to the part of the show here, what we call the lightning round. So I'm going to ask some quick questions. So first off, Captain Crunch or Cinnamon Toast Crunch?
Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Beach, mountains, or lake?
I live a quarter mile from the beach. If I turn around, I have the Santa Monica Mountains. I'm blessed to have both, but I suspect that it would be the beach. Excellent.
Levi's or Wranglers?
Levi's if I'm shooting in New York City. Wranglers if I'm up in the Continental Divide, like on the set of Hostiles.
Excellent. Caribbean or Caribbean?
The Caribbean.
The Caribbean. And lastly, I know you're a huge music fan. Crazy Heart was just a great breakout piece for you. Favorite band you're listening to now and why we should be all listening to them?
I would say my favorite band that I listened to when I was at Hampton, Sydney, I still listen to today, and Rolling Stone once said is the greatest American rock and roll band from Athens, Georgia, REM.
For you, anything else you want to add about Hampton, Sydney?
Why go to Hampton, Sydney? Because Hampton, Sydney knows how to educate and empower young men. And a real brotherhood exists there that I think doesn't exist anywhere else, where you have friends and mentors with whom you keep in touch the rest of your life and who will walk with you on hopefully what is a journey towards a very meaningful life. And for me, it's one of the great gifts. And beyond that, I will say the rhetoric program, which, as I mentioned, is the cornerstone of our academic experience and ensures that every student graduates with the ability to express himself clearly and confidently and effectively. And as a film writer and director, that program has helped me more than
Excellent. All right, everyone, this has been Scott Hooper, Hampton Sydney, class of 92. Scott, thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah,
I totally appreciate it.
You bet.
We'll see everybody at the next one. Thank you. I'm Ted Wright, Hampton Sydney College, class of 1989, proud alumni, and we appreciate you being at Tiger Talk. Thank you so much.